Good afternoon. This is Perry Reynolds with the International Housewares Association. It is our pleasure today to bring you an update from Hugh Rushing about the cookware industry. Hugh has served as Executive Vice President of the Cookware Manufacturers Association since 1992. And today I am absolutely certain he is going to give you insights on the industry that will help you in your business. Hugh, over to you.
Thank you, Perry, and thanks to the International Housewares Association for inviting me back. We did a program last year, which I hope was well received, and this is sort of an update, what's cooking and updating the trends and the techniques in cookware and bakeware. And it's our second webinar, as I mentioned, for IHA, and I welcome you as well to today's webinar. Well, this is me, Hugh Rushing, Executive Vice President, Cookware Manufacturers Association. I always think it's helpful if you're speaking on a webinar to at least have a picture of somebody, and most of that gray hair, I got it honestly. I spent 14 years as a manufacturer. Have been with the CMA now for almost 21 years as Executive Vice President. And part of that time as well, I was an adjunct professor of marketing and management at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And when I was younger, in my late teens and early 20s and in college, I had experience in retail as well. A lot of speakers start out with a joke. I want to start out with a quick summary about a magic pan. There's a storyteller named Dolores Hydock. We had her at our CMA annual meeting this past April. Dolores is a very gifted person who tells wonderful stories, and she told us the story about her mother's magic pan. Dolores grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania. Her father a machinist, her mother a homemaker, and she's in her early 60s now. But Dolores told us about her mother's wonderful magic pan in which her mother cooked spaghetti and meatballs and sauce for lasagna and noodles and beef tips and all these wonderful foods. And Dolores fast forwards till just a few years ago, she went up to help her mother sort of dismantle her house to move her down to close to where Dolores lives, as she was in her late 80s and getting very feeble. And Dolores came across the magic pan, and instead of being a magic pan, it was a simple 10-inch stainless steel fry pan circa 1955. And Dolores remembered that pan in a totally different way than what the pan appeared to her at the present day. And I think it's interesting that the cookware industry is an industry which produces products which have that kind of resonance in people's memories. And so just remember sometime when you sell a pan to somebody, you're not just selling something for them to cook food in, but you're also selling something to them that may create wonderful memories for their children down the road. In a word, the CMA's mission in Publix are as follows. The CMA promotes the optimal and appropriate design, manufacture, sale, use, and servicing of cookware and bakeware. And we do that in four ways: quality standards development, the sharing of information, education, and impartial communication to the members of our association, the trade partners, i.e. the retailers of our world, and as well as consumers. So we try to take care of all three of those folks. The CMA's 26 members produce branded cookware, and some brands that you know and are well known. You can see on the screen there, all the way from All-Clad, Wherever, Scanpan, Wilton, Farberware, Tefal, Swiss Diamond, Lodge, Meyer. Complete list on our website, cookware.org/membership.php. The CMA has gathered and reported on statistics for more than 80 years. Our CMA members report their shipments to retailers each month. The CMA also monitors each and every import record for cookware and bakeware that comes into the United States. And the statistics represent shipments to all portions of the market, not a single or a few channels of distribution. Every once in a while in publications you may see shipments that are alleged by organizations, but we're pretty sure that we have the best statistics because we think we cover the entire waterfront. For the full year for 2011, aluminum cookware was $807 million at retail. That was up 4.6% over the 2010 year. Stainless steel cookware in 2011, $624 million. up 29% over the 2010 shipment year. Cast iron, porcelain on steel, and copper, we aggregate those together, $387 million at retail. That was up 18% over 2010. Metal bakeware, $396 million. That was up over 20% over 2010. Kitchenware, which everything from colanders to mixing bowls to gravy containers, salt and pepper shakers that might be manufactured by CMA members, up 13% over the preceding years. And tea kettles at $43 million were up 17% over 2010. Periodically, I will stop and see if there are any questions that have been submitted using the chat function, and Jenny or Perry will be monitoring those. Do we have any questions so far? All right, we'll move right along then. Interestingly enough, statistically speaking, the private label and imported portion of the marketplace, those cookware shipments increased 33% in 2011 over 2010. Retailers restocked, and particularly with house brands. 2010 was a very down year for imports. A lot of retailers, larger retailers particularly, were very conservative, and many of them did not order a whole lot of private label product. Much of the increase that we think in 2011 was due to that restocking, due to low level of inventory following the 2010 holiday season. In fact, the 2010 holiday season was better than most people thought it would be for cookware and bakeware, so we ended up at the beginning of last year with a really low inventory level. So far in 2012, where are we? Our branded shipments are down slightly through August of 2012, and that's really not surprising to us considering 2011. There was some inventory hangover coming out of 2011 and into 2012. We find particularly large retailers are being cautious. The election year traditionally breeds caution, we think, in both consumers and retailers alike. And there's some opportunities there for fast-moving independents. So we're telling people, and we think that you should be alert. It could be a busy November, December. The season could run later than usual and last longer. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks right after the election as far as retail traffic is concerned. Let's talk a little bit about specific consumer preferences, and first of all, let's talk about aluminum cookware. Aluminum cookware, about 38% of the business comes from the anodized side of the business. A colored exterior accounts for 56% of the dollars in the business. The polished exterior, about 6%. Non-stick coatings are roughly 80% of the dollars and 90% of the units that are sold in the United States. Here's an interesting fact. Majority of consumers cannot identify the metal used in cookware other than cast iron. They know that well. Polished pans, for most consumers, are all stainless steel. So polished aluminum and stainless steel are seen in the consumer's eyes as essentially being the same product. When it comes to stainless steel cookware, the second largest category, multiply has about 60% of the dollars, but only 40% of the units. Multiply can be anywhere from tri-ply up to a 9-ply product. Fabricated bottom, in other words, a cap bottom or braised bottom, 32% of the dollars, but 60% of the units almost. And just 2% of the dollars in stainless steel go to single wall product, and most of that are deeply drawn stock pots and stew pans. Here's an interesting fact. Our tests indicate that well-built fabricated bottom stainless units can perform as well as tri-ply or multiply units do. It depends on the thickness, obviously, of the conducting part of that stainless steel. So there's an interesting fact for retailers. When it comes to bakeware, bakeware pretty much evenly split between metallic and glass when it comes to consumer preferences. And here's a fact: the demand for silicone bakeware generally has fallen off rather dramatically in the last couple of years. Silicone was very hot. Lots of people tried it out. Some people love it. Some people find it challenging to use. Some people complain, or we hear from consumers, they have to place silicone if it's not reinforced with a wire form on top of another piece of bakeware, so they end up with two things to wash rather than one. So it was a great impulse item, but it does seem to have fallen from popularity rather dramatically in the last couple of years. Interesting consumer preference. We keep up with this very closely. The popularity of items by rank. Cake pans and cookie sheets are the two most popular items in the bakeware category, and those together are about 70% of the bakeware that is sold as cake pans and cookie sheets. And when we say cake pans, we include round 9-inch pans as well as the most popular 9x13 flat sheet pans. Cookie sheets, of course, come in all different sizes and types. Number 3 are meat and roasters, and of course this is the time of year that roasters are flying off the shelves. As we always say, they can't find the one they hid from themselves in the attic last season. Perhaps they need to buy another one. And then we have muffin pans, loaf pans for the cooking of bread and loaf cakes, and then finally pie pans. Where do consumers shop? Well, when it comes to cookware, mass merchants, including the clubs, have about 33% share in 2011. That was down just a little bit from a year earlier. Big box stores, including outlet and gourmet, at 20% of the market share. Traditional department stores, 13%. That was up just a little bit. Moderate department stores at 14%. That was steady from year over year. What we sort of call the odd markets, military, post-exchange stores, direct sales, 3%. Internet merchants, interestingly enough, were up 2%. They now have about 7% of the market. The outliers for cookware really are grocery, drug, and television, all of which combine together less than 2%. For bakeware, it's a little bit different. Mass merchants have a slightly larger share there of 42%. Again, 20% in the big box, including outlet and gourmet. National moderate department stores at 13%. Grocery and drug, though, comes in 6%, and that's usually the situation where a person buys a cake mix or some other baking mix, and they're right in the grocery store, and they impulse buy a product to cook it with.
Excuse me, Hugh?
Surely.
We have a question here. Who are included in the mass merchants?
Mass merchants: Target, Walmart, Kmart. Basically, Sam's Club, Costco, BJ's. Those are the mass merchants.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's all we have at this time.
That's okay. Traditional department stores for bakeware at 3%. The Internet, slightly more than in cookware, about 8.5% of the product is sold through Internet sales. Demand factors. As I mentioned, the CMA has been doing statistical research for over 80 years, and we do a lot of research on correlations. Correlation sometimes gets confused with causality, but there are certain things that we study which we think do affect the demand for cookware and for bakeware. And one of the most obvious, and which has proven time and again to be a very good predictor, is new household formation. That includes marriages. Sadly, that also includes divorces. Another household gets established when a separation or divorce occurs. Graduation from college and the establishment of a new career. New household formation is a fairly steady phenomenon. Most of the variation occurs just in the cohort of the people that turn a certain age in a certain year. A certain percentage of them get married, say by the age of 25, and if it was a big year, you could expect a little uptick there. The second demand factor, yes.
We have another question. We had the question about what a mass merchant was. Now we have another question on who are the big box retailers.
Big box retailers would be linens and things, but that category also contains retailers such as Williams-Sonoma, Sur-La-Table, independent dealers, independent specialty shops.
Okay, that's all we have at this time.
All right, very good. New home construction, another major demand factor. And of course, as we all know, we haven't had a whole lot of new home construction over the last several years, so that hasn't contributed much to cookware demand. And neither has substantial remodeling. Back in the hot days in 2003 and 4 and 5 and 6, where people were tapping into their home equity lines and remodeling, that was a real driver for cookware and bakeware sales. As you can imagine, if people get a new kitchen, they like to have new cookware to go with it. The general economic uncertainty is sort of the balancing act, I guess, that cookware enjoys, because as people become more uncertain, they're more likely to stay home and to purchase cookware. And this is one reason that demand year over year for cookware, year in and year out, is never wildly swinging in one direction or the other. It's one of the more stable things, and in fact, inventory levels often have more demand characteristics than anything else, as we saw in 2011 over 2010. But as people become uncertain, we saw particularly in bakeware a lot of demand as people discovered that with just a little bit of time and a fairly low cost, they could certainly prepare many baked goods at a much less expensive proposition than they could buying them in the store. Here's another demand factor. The more entertaining the consumer does, the more likely they are to buy or to expand and use their cookware and bakeware in the home. Cookware and bakeware is a social product, just as entertaining is a social function. Some people would think that with the advent of social media that people would do less entertaining. We don't think that's really the case. We think they're entertaining away, and the more likely they are to entertain, the more likely they are to buy product. Cookware demand is also negatively correlated with restaurant visits. We study restaurant visits very carefully. As the restaurant business goes up, the cookware business would tend to go in the opposite direction, and vice versa. Again, obviously, people eat out, they don't use cookware. If they eat out a lot, they don't use as much cookware and don't cook as often as they might otherwise. So those are really the 6 demand factors which really contribute to demand for cookware and for bakeware. Here's some consumer preferences that you might study for retailing strategies. We know from talking to consumers, and y'all know this too, that they want to feel the product. They want then, of course, to buy one that's in the box, so that always is an aggravation from a retail standpoint. They don't want one that somebody touched, but they want it to be out where they can feel it and to heft it. So the strategy there obviously is display cookware outside of the box so consumers can heft and feel it. You study consumers at a retail level and you see that's a typical thing. They want to know how heavy the cookware is. Consumers also want, yes, Jenny?
I have another question asking what a moderate department store, what an example of a moderate department store is.
The moderate department stores are the JCPenney's and the Sears of the world, as opposed to traditional department stores, which would be Macy's.
Okay, and then we just got another question in. How are restaurant visits trending in 2012?
They're up a little bit. People are a little more confident, and they're going a little bit more back to eat. Fast food is going back, coming back. Actually, fast food never really went away in the recession. But the people that are doing well are the people that you see advertising on television with 2 entrees and an appetizer for $20. Those businesses seem to be doing better than the real white tablecloth. At the top end, they never did go away much, but it was the medium price restaurants that really had a tough time during the recession from the information that we gathered.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Very good. Consumers prefer to seek information. Utilizing educational materials is a good strategy to help train your sales staff to prompt for and answer questions. We have a resource there at our website, tools_introduction.php, and you'll be able to get these slides. Of course, this is being recorded, so you don't have to copy that down madly, but you can go to that area, and we have some resources there, some units on really salesperson education that will help your folks be able to answer questions that consumers may have. Consumers also seek affirmation. This becomes more and more apparent to us as we realize that the educational system of a generation or two ago, which typically trained young people in domestic arts, how to cook, how to bake, how to mix, all that's gone by the wayside now. Schools are too busy working on preparing for the latest test to come down the road. So we hear from a lot of consumers that don't really have a lot of confidence in their ability to cook. So we need to try to seek ways to build their confidence. Good cooking is a combination of the right tools and fresh food along with really pretty simple techniques and instructions. And retailers typically have all three. Y'all have cookbooks. Retailers obviously sell lots of fresh food. And then, of course, you have the tools in the cookware and the bakeware. And encouraging them, I think, to launch out and to say that they're not going to poison themselves is always a good way to help consumers feel better about their ability to cook. Here's some advances in materials and coatings. Nonstick coatings are better than ever. I think we have evidence that nonstick coatings are longer lasting than they have been. They're more scratch and heat resistance. Concerns about PFOA have not really penetrated the consumer brain. We still get a call, but we don't get more than a call or two a month with people asking questions about PFOA. Ceramic nonsticks, we have found those in our kitchens here at the CMA really to be a mixed bag. Some of them are very good and perform very well. Some of them don't perform very well. They don't have the release qualities on a long-term basis that traditional PTFE finishes have. I know there was a question earlier about colored nonstick. We see a lot of colored nonstick product in Europe. It's very popular there. We have not seen that really translate into consumer demand in the United States. There are several people offering white or very light colored or very, well, in some cases, oddly colored pans. I've never been sure how an egg would look fried on a green surface, but I guess it's possible to find that out now. We also think there's going to be some potentially revolutionary coatings that may come on the market for 2013. We really can't say any more than that at the present time, but there's some interesting developments going on out there in the laboratories. The quality of manufacturing have increased. It really has increased in the last 10 or 15 years. If you go back and look at the offerings on the marketplace that you would have seen at the Houseware Show, say in the year 1998 versus what's available now, it's just amazing. The quality of the product for the amount charged for it has really increased. The value equation has increased. There are more options than ever before, more individualization. More manufacturers have taken niche positions and have specialized products, which is good news for retailers because retailers, of course, want to have products that are not directly comparable to their competition. High fashion melding with utility. I've shown this picture a lot of times before, and this pan on the right, which was a classic from Revereware from the late 1950s, which really didn't change much over its lifestyle, and compare that to the pan on the left. Pans are durable, they're more beautiful, they have more art in them versus the old days when they were just pretty utilitarian sorts of things. I mentioned the sophisticated alternatives to non-stick. There's an example of the pan there in the picture, as you can see, with a light-colored non-stick. There's going to be more U.S.-made product. Manufacturers, again, are returning to domestic manufacturing. China is in the midst of a great disorganization, if you will, as workers there are demanding higher pricing or higher labor costs. It means the labor advantage that manufacturers had in China is shrinking. After all, the actual direct labor for most cookware is only about 7% of the total cost. So you can imagine if wages go up substantially in China, the opportunities for U.S. manufacturing certainly increase. We're also seeing more and more European manufacturers entering the U.S. market. Part of this is because Europe, if it's not in a recession, will be shortly in a recession. The demand is very weak in Europe, we understand, for cookware and bakeware, as it is for most consumer products. There's a wider array of worldwide quality brands, again, in the U.S., and particularly from some traditional EU marketers. Most of these are high-end brands, very well-made product of very high quality with great long-lived reputations. More non-comparable offerings, I already mentioned this, due to flexible and lean manufacturing. It used to take sometimes an hour or two to change a line over to make a different pan. I've been in factories now where the changeover is less than 10 minutes from the time they're making one sort of pan until they're making another. So it means more flexible manufacturing means more non-comparable offerings. Some resources from the CMA include our website at cookware.org, which we invite you to visit. We have a blog, cookwareandbakeware.org. We blog about different things, all the way from different ways people prepare food, different items of interest that come along. We address different topics that we hear from consumers, and we hope you'll visit there and find something of interest. We have our Ask the Experts page for consumers, and this also works for retailers from our website. You can just simply fill a form out there and hit the send button. It'll come to us. We usually can answer that question within a day or less if you have any. We have our guide to cookware and bakeware for you listening on this program today. If you would like to have your own copy of that, I invite you simply to send us an email, hrushing@cookware.org, or shoot us an email via Ask the Experts. We'll be more than happy to get a copy of that guide to cookware and bakeware out for you, or to have in your store, or to help use to pass around to your sales trainees. We have a new iPhone application which is out called Find My Cookware and Bakeware. This is a way we're reaching out to younger consumers when they're in those formative years to ask a bunch of questions. We start out by essentially saying, what do you want to cook and how do you want to cook it? And do you have any preferences? And then it drives them to our members' websites. And from our members' websites, we trust that those sites will steer them towards your retail door. We're very excited about this. We spent a big hunk of money developing this. It's been downloaded several thousand times. We're getting good feedback from consumers who do find it helpful. You can find that. It's a free app, and it's on iTunes, and it's very easily downloaded. You can see us and meet us and talk to us if you would like at trade shows. Of course, we're always at the Housewares Show. We'll be at Ambiente in February and other major trade shows for the industry. I'd like to take just a moment and talk a little bit about the CMA's recently announced partnership with the National Sanitary Foundation, NSF.
Before you go ahead, Hugh, we have a couple questions.
Okay. Let's answer some questions then before I get into that.
Okay. When will the app be available for an Android?
We are still studying whether to do that for Android or not. We haven't made a decision. We hope to have a decision on that by the first of the year.
We also have a question, is there a PDF available? I'm not sure. A PDF of what?
A PDF of what? The guide to cookware and bakeware, perhaps. There would be a PDF, and if you send us an email and would like it as a PDF, simply say that, and we'll shoot it to you as a PDF.
And then backing up a little bit, we had a question regarding reshoring in all cookware material categories.
The question is it reshoring in all the categories?
In all cookware material categories. It's just phrased. It's not really a question.
Oh, okay. Well, reshoring for cast iron really never went offshore, number one. Number two, most of the reshoring that has occurred has been in the aluminum side of the business as opposed to stainless steel. I hope that answers that question.
That's all we have at this time.
Okay. Anyway, back to our partnership with NSF. NSF has started something called the Home Product Certification Program, which is a series of protocols which were developed with help by the CMA and a standardization of a testing battery, which we think is of particular value to retailers and provides assurance that the retailer is getting a product that has passed certain quality checks in an independent laboratory setting. In the most important part, it reduces the cycle time for the retailer. We think this has the potential to reduce the cycle time between the time you decide as a retailer to stock a product and when it's qualified to be shipped to your retail store, perhaps by as much as a month or two. And that, of course, reduces the cost for the manufacturer, the retailer, and ultimately the consumer. So I just would commend that to you. NSF Home Product Certification Program, we're working with manufacturers to get products qualified, and we're working and hopeful that some major retailers are going to come on board and support this program as well, because we do think it will be of benefit to both retailers, consumers, manufacturers, and everybody involved in our industry. Well, I've rattled along for about 30 minutes, and I've just read a study that said only 18 minutes before people get bored. So I hope you haven't been bored, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has had a chance to fire off to us while I've been on this subject.
Nothing has come in. Oh, here's one. Are consumers brand loyal to cookware?
It depends on the consumer. I don't have any hard and fast information about that. We do think that people recognize brands and respond favorably to them. There's also evidence that consumers, the more knowledgeable they become, their ability to switch brands tends to increase. So it's kind of a either-or situation, I suppose. If a consumer is not confident, but they have confidence in a brand, they tend to be more brand loyal than not. Hope that answers that question.
Forged aluminum versus cast aluminum. I guess what are the differences?
Well, forged aluminum is simply aluminum, a thicker aluminum sheet, which is typically done just like any other type of aluminum is done. You may heat the aluminum to aid in the forging process. Forged aluminum tends to be stronger, but even stamped aluminum is strengthened essentially by the working that takes place, the actual mechanical distortion of the product, as opposed to cast aluminum, which obviously is just like iron is made, where you melt the aluminum and pour it into a mold. You can make a more intricate design with cast aluminum. You can also do a thicker section if you want a thicker aluminum product by that. Forging is sort of intermediate between stamping, thickness-wise, and casting.
Okay, and the next question is, how can we find a list of the U.S. cooking pot manufacturers?
U.S. cooking pot manufacturers. Again, just send us an email. We have a list. We can send it to you. The members that we know of that manufacture within the United States.
And did the CMA and SF relationship grow out of the CMA Bureau Veritas work, the work that you did several years ago?
No, it did not. We did some work with Bureau Veritas, thinking that we would roll out a program, but we never reached an agreement there, and so this opportunity came along with NSF. We had input into the protocol development and partnered with them on this.
And some brands promote for nonstick cookware that you can use metal utensils. Is that true? While most promote using wooden or plastic utensils.
The people that manufacture nonstick cookware that are a known entity or branded tell us that metal cookware, metal utensils are fine for use on cookware. There are still some manufacturers who do recommend wooden or nylon or plastic utensils. We typically tell consumers that you should follow the instructions that you get on the packaging or with the pan when it's bought. But the modern, particularly the higher quality non-sticks, are very resistant to scratching. None of them are resistant to cutting. And consumers somehow don't understand the difference between stirring an omelet with a spoon and cutting a piece of meat in the bottom of the pan and worrying that it's cut the nonstick coating. So we say metal utensils do not include knives.
Okay. The next question, what are the industry standards for nonstick coating warranties?
The industry standards for nonstick warranties. Warranties are a function of the manufacturer. We don't get into standards for warranties. That's particularly the purview of the manufacturer as to how they want to warranty their product, and that's not something that we have input to as far as our standards are concerned. Our standards are concerned with the selection of the nonstick coatings which are applied to the product. The manufacturer obviously has to work with the producer of the nonstick coating. Nonstick coating quality is a function not only of the formulation, but also the application of the product, and then obviously how the consumer treats it in its daily use or use in the kitchen.
Okay, the next question. They would like to find a U.S. factory for our aluminum pots with nonstick coating.
Again, just shoot us an email. We'll be happy to pass along available resources to them with that email.
Okay. Predictions.
I could name a bunch of them off, but I would be sure to leave one out, and then I would be in trouble. So yeah, that's why I would prefer to do it where I can write it down and make sure I've got it right.
Good idea. The next question, predictions for cookware sales in 2013 and beyond 2013.
Well, looking in the crystal ball, you know, as Harry Truman said, please give me a one-armed economist, because they're always saying on the other hand. I think a lot depends on how the world economy goes. I think depending on how the election goes, one way or the other, people will be, the uncertainty will be over with in a couple of weeks, and I think that's going to bode well for just consumer demand in general. Beyond that, I think a lot depends on, you know, how Europe goes. You know, there's doomsayers that say Europe could drag the whole world down into another recession. There are other people that think Europe will dodge the bullet and continue to limp along and gradually get better. So far as we can tell, looking at the economic tea leaves that we see, is that it looks like things generally are getting better in the U.S. But then you get a spate of bad news like we had this week, which says that, you know, some major people's earnings are not exactly where they were, and the stock market fell, of course, 250 points earlier this week. That always weighs on people's minds. But I'm cautiously optimistic that those balancing factors and forces, which I mentioned earlier, when one demand factor goes in one direction, sometimes the other demand factor goes in the other direction. I think cookware and bakeware is still a solid bet for consumers to be purchasing in 2013 and beyond.
Okay, and somebody wants to know if you have a test kitchenette CMA.
Yes, we do.
Okay, the next question, where can manufacturers get more information on the CMA NSF protocol testing process?
Again, just be happy to send them. If they will shoot me an email to hrushing@cookware.org, I'll be more than happy to get the information out to them as soon as I can.
Okay, and I believe the last question is, will the food react with all cookware, or they capitalize AL, I don't know if that's aluminum or
aluminum,
all.
Yes, that's aluminum.
Aluminum, okay, aluminum cookware, then glass cookware.
No, because 99% of aluminum cookware has nonstick coating, and so there is no reaction between the metal and the food stuffs. Glass is the most non-reactive of any cookware material, but glass is a miserable conductor of electricity, and so it's pretty useless when it comes to top of stove cooking. But but aluminum, like I said, is coated with nonstick, so the surface of the aluminum doesn't come into contact with the food at all.
And then he asked, what about stainless steel?
Stainless steel is the, behind glass, the second least reactive product out there as far as metal contact with it. Again, aluminum is reactive, but aluminum is coated typically with nonstick, so there is no reaction.
And then the next question, what trends in bakeware materials and coatings do you see?
Bakeware trends, again, bakeware is pretty much, as far as the metallic part of the product is concerned, pretty evenly split, with steel having a slightly greater percentage than aluminum does. We think steel will probably continue to grow as a category as opposed to aluminum. It's more durable, less likely to dent and ding, as more thermally stable as well. You know, as far as glass is concerned, that's a pretty traditional sorts of thing. There's not, I think, a whole lot of things that you could do with glass. One of the things that I keep waiting for somebody to come up with is a casserole pan with a nonstick coating on it that's made of glass, because every time I cook a casserole with lots of cheese in it, I get a sore elbow scrubbing it out. So I'm hopeful that someday, somewhere, somehow, there's going to be a way to put the nonstick coating or a food release coating on glass casseroles. I think that'd be a great product introduction for the future. I've suggested that to some glass manufacturers in the past, but I haven't seen anything in the marketplace yet.
I believe those are all the questions. Hugh, thank you so much for a great presentation, and thank you all for attending. Many of them kept you on your toes. It looks like many great questions. For those of you who would like to receive, to get Hugh's PowerPoint, feel free to go to www.housewares.org into the Knowledge Center. And you will see a link for all the webinars that IHA has hosted for the past year. And if you have any questions for IHA, feel free to email myself, Ginny Costello at gcostello@housewares.org. And once again, thank you for your time and for attending. Thank you again, Hugh. Have a great day.